Denmark's asylum model is often deemed as Europe's strictest. Its processing centres are gated off and surrounded by miles of snow-covered countryside. It's images like these that the country has used to tell those wanting to arrive in its borders that they won't have an automatic right to stay. This tough approach is what Home Secretary Ms Mahmood wants to translate into Britain's asylum policy, which she says is being exploited by illegal migration.
Our current rules were not built for the type of migration and asylum seeking that we're seeing today.
We joined her on a trip to get an inside look at the country's asylum system and to ask what this means for Britain. This is Centre Sandholm, home to Denmark's reception centre for all new asylum seekers, run by their version of the Red Cross. It's where they're first registered with the authorities, first make an asylum application and usually stay for up to a month before being moved on. The Home Secretary behind me just arriving, she's going to get a tour of this facility, showing how the Danes do it, showing how it works and whether we can take any inspiration from what they're doing.
We are providing a similar setup as the Danish society, municipality.
Yeah.
We have school, kindergarten, youth club, medical care.
So that the integration is the same outside.
It's similar.
Ms Mahmood's being shown around one of these facilities just behind me. We're told that 80% of people that are coming through here are actually Ukrainian refugees. But also just in terms of the numbers, it's an incredibly different situation. It's an incredibly different system to the one that we have in Britain. They have their application processed here. They have healthcare checks here before they go on to another residence, essentially to wait to see if their asylum application is going to be accepted or not. If it is, they can stay in the country for up to a couple of years.
Will they get given?
Yeah, this is a bed, blanket,
duvet, bed,
whatever they need here. And the day or two, when they get registered, they will get clothes, from inside out, the shoes, what they need.
So we've just seen where asylum seekers come if they're coming into the country. Next we'll be seeing where they will be deported if their asylum claim is rejected. The country's stricter approach on immigration came in response to an unprecedented surge in asylum seekers reaching its borders. From 2014 to 15, applications rose from 7,000 to 21,000. The sudden arrival of such numbers in a country of just over 5.5 million people saw heavy strain placed on housing, processing systems and its welfare system. Far-right and far-left parties began to climb in the polls as debates intensified. So the centre-left Social Democrats introduced a set of hardline policies to crack down on immigration and asylum seekers. Their main aim was to minimise the perception that Denmark was a country full of incentives for arrivals. So as you can see from behind me, this is all quite a gated, closed-off part of the community. We're a few miles outside the city centre of Copenhagen here. There's absolutely no one around. It's very remote. Nobody's going to be walking by here, basically. And this is where people are going to be coming, essentially to be deported, to be removed from the country if indeed their application for asylum is rejected. And it's all filling a little bit military barracks around here. And as you can see, there's no one around. It's very sparse. It's a total gated community. You can see the police behind me standing guard here. But obviously, it's a removal centre, so it doesn't need to be too attractive for the people that are staying here. They've obviously failed their asylum claim. They're on the way to being deported. It's really basic stuff here, like basic beds, basic accommodation. I've just seen a poster on the side there which says beware of rats. So obviously this is the removals process. It's not meant to be pretty, it's not meant to be nice, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, for the immigration officials here because they're sending people out of the country. And for failed asylum seekers, this will be the last place that they see before they get deported. It's not been a particularly pleasant experience walking around it, but there are some chinks of light. There's community groups, there's playgrounds, there's sort of activities for them to do while they're here, while they're waiting. So while the government is trying to portray it as a particularly harsh environment for illegal migrants being deported out of the country, there is still some chinks of light here too. So why does Ms Mahmood want to copy the Danes? The main principle she wants to replicate is that refugee status should be temporary, not permanent, and that our system should not be so attractive that people choose to come here above other nations. And although Denmark is a far smaller nation with no arrivals coming here on small boats, they have succeeded in driving down their asylum applications. They're now down to a 40-year low, while ours have gone up. And the Home Secretary thinks there's no choice but to reform migration to keep the social contract with voters. During the visit, she held a one-on-one meeting with Rasmus Stockland, the Danish migration minister. He was put into the job just a few months ago, and at the time said he wanted as many people as possible to go back home.
We had a great meeting, and that we are on the same page. I think we share the analysis that if you want to maintain social cohesion in a society, then you cannot have uncontrolled migration, and for that reason it is extremely important to get control back. Of course, some things are a bit easier when you're a small country like Denmark, where you had only 160 asylum applicants in January, for instance. That's another story when you look at the UK. You're a huge country, you have bigger problems.
And you also said that there's a need to try and maintain social cohesion here in Denmark, and talking about radical Islam and parallel societies. What are you doing there to stop that from happening and to stop that sort of social disintegration?
Well, that is part of the reason why we are very keen on expelling people and sending more people back. That is that we don't want parallel societies, we won't accept them, and we won't accept that norms of imams or anyone else try to dominate areas of Denmark. And for that reason, we have put forward different legislation that in different ways regulates this. And of course, that's not one quick fix. There's a lot of different initiatives that we've made, and I do believe that they have an effect. It is important that kids, when they go to school in the morning, that they don't grow up in a part of Denmark which might as well could have been a part of the greater Middle East. And for that reason, we're very focused on that. We need to live together here in Denmark.
And before leaving Denmark, the Home Secretary sat down with LBC to discuss her plans.
Well, look, I think we've got to be honest about the fact that the way in which people now seek asylum has changed very significantly from when the Refugee Convention was first brought forward after the Second World War. Today, people go through multiple safe countries before they come to Britain to seek asylum. So it isn't a case any longer of people seeking sanctuary in the first safe country they can get to once they're, leaving their own country because they're no longer safe because their war has broken out or whatever. So that pattern has completely changed, and the rules that we have at the moment haven't kept pace with that. So I think one of the important changes that we're making is from now on, refugee status, instead of being effectively permanent once you've got it, will be temporary going forward. So it is a temporary grant of sanctuary to keep you safe whilst your home country is in danger. It will be reviewed every 2.5 years, and when your country becomes safe, the expectation is you return back to your home country. And I think that's just a recognition of the fact that our current rules were not built for the type of migration and asylum seeking that we're seeing today.
And what do you think success will look like? Obviously, you're bringing this in later this year. What in a year, 6 months, 2 years will a successful policy look like to you?
Well, the changes on temporary refugee status rather than the more permanent model that we've had are being made now. From now on, a refugee status will be temporary rather than permanent, and cases will be reviewed every 2.5 years. So we'll make some changes immediately, as I am doing. Other changes will require primary legislation. We'll have laws that will be passed in Parliament over the course of the next few months. We are making lots of changes, some very quickly, some that will take a bit more time. But the totality of that package, I do expect, once it's all implemented, to start having the impact of bringing the system back into order and control, to draw people away from coming to this country illegally, to stop people getting on those boats in the north of France, to change the calculus that people are making because they're choosing to come to this country, primarily because the system that we have is quite open. And once you get status, you're of course able to access benefits, get social housing and so on. So I think it's right that the changes that we're making will have an impact, and I think it will change the considerations that refugees make about which country they're going to go to.
But there were some parts of their migration model that she didn't want to replicate. And another idea that the Danes have been looking at, well, actually they've introduced this new legislation which basically demolishes areas with more than 50% non-Western immigrants and basically moves them out, demolishes that area basically. Is there anything you think we can learn from that model in terms of integration in the UK?
So look, not every bit of the Danish model I think translates to what we need to do back at home. This is one part of the package I don't agree with. I don't think it suits our model of how we run things in our country. Look, I think that the important thing is that people people are contributing to society. People have come to our country to make it their home, just as my parents did, by the way, in the late 60s, early 70s. You contribute, you pay your way, you make, you're a citizen that is doing the right things. I think that helps people to integrate, and integration is the most important thing. It's why we're making changes on English language as well, because it's so incredibly crucial to a person's ability to be able to settle successfully in our country. We're not the sort of country where we're going to start passing laws about where particular kinds of people can and should not live. And I don't think that the success of integration comes from counting the number of brown faces or white faces or black faces in a particular street or in a particular neighbourhood. That's not the success of integration. The success of integration comes from whether our people are all able to speak English, access the labour market, have the right skills, and are making a contribution. That, I think, is what ultimately holds the country together.
So we spent just over 24 hours following Ms Mahmood, following the Home Secretary around here in Denmark, and watching her look at the elements of the Danish system that she thinks that we can operate in Britain. And key to that is the principle that refugee status should be temporary. And that is something that will be quite easy for her to replicate. That is something that I think lots of people back home will see the value in. However, some of the more extreme elements of this Danish system, which to be fair, we've not seen too much of while we've been here, she won't be able to replicate. And when I spoke to Ms Mahmood, she was clear that there were some elements of the Danish policy, like that ghetto policy where 50% of people have to be from a certain background. She was clear that some of those ideas she won't be replicating in Britain. And on the political side, obviously, for the Labour Party, this is key ground for them in the fight against reform. Reform obviously have said that they want to implement sort of US-style, ICE-style immigration raids across the country. The Labour Party is not going that far. However, there are some in the Labour Party that are uncomfortable with the position that Ms Mahmood is in, uncomfortable with this move of a shift to the right on migration, especially with Sir Keir Starmer's precarious position in the polls. The government thinks that the benefits from replicating this Danish system are going to be felt in the numbers, but the proof is going to be in the pudding of the numbers of people that continue to make that really dangerous journey across the Channel. For Sir Keir Starmer, for Ms Mahmood, it's absolutely crucial that they get those small boat numbers down. And while we've been here in the last 24 hours or so, I'm told that there have been about 550 small boat migrants that have made that journey across the Channel. So for Sir Keir Starmer, the fight is not over, not in the Labour Party, not in the country, and not, of course, to get those small boat numbers down.